Coming up on We Talk News this week, a national study on teen weed use over the past 2 years concludes legalization does not impact user percentages. And more chaos in Massachusetts as the Cannabis Control Commission suspends 2 more employees. We'll get the latest from Talking Joints memo author Chris Ferrone on the Bay State Report. In Mississippi, deadly toxins found in products sold at unlicensed gas stations and convenience stores. Arizona surpasses the $1 billion mark in sales, and the National Cannabis Roundtable releases its first corporate social responsibility report. We have reaction from Nick Richards at Greenspoon Martyr, plus a glimpse at a different type of holiday movie. All that and coast to coast cannabis news coverage on We Talk News with Elena Pinto. Next!
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome to We Talk News for this week, Pro Cannabis Media's weekly roundup of cannabis news from around the world. I'm Elena Pinto. What about the kids? Every parent is obligated to protect their children from the dangers of the real world, right? Well, prohibitionists constantly preach that with more legal states selling licensed cannabis, more and more kids will be users. There have been a number of research studies over the past few years that actually refute that. Now there's one that the National Institute on Drug Abuse funded with the University of Michigan, and Marsha Lopez was in charge of the research, which concludes adult use or legalization of cannabis across the country has not really impacted the use of younger people, according to the data from the recent, quote, Monitoring the Future, unquote, survey. In fact, there have been no substantial increases at all, and, quote, use has been stable across all grades that were surveyed. Our Michigan correspondent is Amy Carter, who is fighting the battle in that state to allow schools access to medicinal cannabis for students who have a prescription for it. It's called Jaden's Law, named after her now 16-year-old son who is challenged by autism. Amy, when you hear the results of that survey, you aren't surprised, right?
Not at all. I get very fed up with the negativity that surrounds this topic, and I'm happy to see the results of that study. Here in Michigan, we're hoping to have a hearing at the beginning of the year to provide testimony to our lawmakers on Jaden's Law. If Michigan passes this, we would be the 11th state to approve some type of legislation for access for pediatric patients while at school. The buzz in Michigan this week has been about Steve Linder. A well-known podcast, Mirrors, was released, and Steve Linder broke his silence. He proclaims his innocence in the weed scandal and suggests that medical cannabis caregivers are crooks and says that marijuana is not really medicine. If you don't know who Steve Linder is, he was the former head of the MCMA, which is a lobbying group that in 2021 tried to come after patients and caregivers with this bogus Safety Act. In other news, Skyman is closing their doors in the Diamonddale facility just outside of Lansing. They announced yesterday they'd be closing their 56,000 square foot facility and laying off more than 180 employees as of March. I'm Amy Carter with this week's Michigan Cannabis Report for We Talk News.
Testing of cannabis has become another element to the cannabis industry that has come under fire since legalization has started all over the world. The biggest challenge is the testing of products that are not regulated and are available at convenience stores, smoke shops, and gas stations. We at Pro Cannabis Media have urged the public since our inception to only buy products from licensed medical or adult use dispensaries. We also know that consistency of testing is still being developed, but this news note in Mississippi is especially upsetting. A testing facility in that state sampled some of those illegal products and found not only higher levels of THC allowed in many of the products, but also high levels of pesticides. So again, only use products from licensed legal stores. It's not a problem in Arizona, where that state recently cleared the $1 billion in sales plateau. Here's Karen Black with our Arizona Cannabis Report.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. It's official. Arizona hit the $1 billion mark again this year, despite the slowdown in sales this summer. The latest Department of Revenue figures show cannabis companies sold $1.1 billion of product through September 23. Adult use accounted for $797 million, while medical cannabis totaled $267 million. As of October, there were just over 121,000 medical card holders, and they purchased more than 47,000 pounds of plant medicine in the first 10 months. If the past 2 Decembers are any indication, cannabis companies should see a nice uptick in holiday sales this year and could surpass last year's total sales of $1.4 billion. And that's not the only good money news. According to Viridian Capital Advisors, Arizona saw the biggest jump in capital raises of any state for the last 12-month period ended December 8th. The state tallied 8 raises totaling nearly $98 million. Viridian didn't have good news, however, for Phoenix-based Vec Sciences. The company fell 6 spots in its overall rankings from number 12 to number 30 after third quarter revenues and EBITDA were both lower than expected. Cannabis legalization and litigation are causing policy changes at the Arizona Department of Child Safety. A state appeals court ruling that upheld parental rights to use medical cannabis, on which we previously reported, means Arizona officials will no longer investigate reports of marijuana exposure in newborns when parents are registered medical cannabis card holders. High Times Cannabis Cup is giving the Copper State an opportunity to end the year on a high note with its Arizona People's Choice Edition. 2,100 zonies can vote for their favorites among 141 products and 62 brands across multiple categories. Judging kits are available at various dispensaries and cost $59. Voting ends January 21st, and the winners will be announced February 5th. That's all for this week's Arizona Cannabis Report. My final one for this.
Delivery services like testing labs is another related entity in the cannabis space. Getting a delivery license is just as challenging as any other element in the industry. In Illinois, the governor waived annual licensing fees for 3 years, but he has also put a stop to the issuing of any new licenses for delivery companies. Cannabis legalization news, Thomas Howard has more with our Illinois Cannabis Report.
Hi, I'm Tom from Cannabis Legalization News. Catch us on YouTube. And I have a little update out of Illinois. To end 2023, there is going to be a moratorium on the transporter license, an empty license, a shell of a license that has no value, to try to see if we can get some value to it. And they had an unlimited license for this. Now it's quite limited. They will not allow new licenses until January 27th, and that's after SB, Senate Bill 1555, was signed into law on Friday. And that was last Friday, but here we are. And Pritzker has a quote. Here is his quote: "Since day one of the fight for legalization, I have stressed that this accomplishment is meaningless without reinvestment and repair for the communities left behind by the war on drugs. Small businesses, whether transporters, growers, or dispensaries, must be able to succeed if we wish to achieve that equity." End quote from Governor Pritzker. Now, if they really want that, they're going to have to figure out how THCA hemp is being sold everywhere without a license. And if they can do that, maybe then they can achieve those goals, because we got to get a dispensary open next year for about $2 million. Or I could just sell it at the gas station and call it hemp. That's our report out of Illinois. I'm Tom. Back to you guys in the studio.
One of the largest multi-state operators in the industry is Curaleaf. After growing fast out of the gate, the publicly traded company is now reorganizing before it's listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. There's a business difference now between Curaleaf Holdings and Curaleaf USA. When it comes to these huge public companies, we go to our Wall Street expert, Doug Miller, for his High on Wall Street segment. Here he is.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. That's right. Curaleaf Holdings had to do some reorganizing of its U.S. operations, Curaleaf USA, among other things, to receive approval to trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the TSX, which it started trading on 12/14/23 under the stock ticker CURA. The reorganization involves a third-party investor, which is not affiliated with the company, to be issued one share of Class A voting stock for $1 million. Prior to the investment, Curaleaf Holdings held 100% of issued and outstanding shares of Curaleaf USA. The investment resulted in the conversion of Curaleaf Holdings shares into 999 shares of Class B non-voting stock. The investor now holds all of the issued and outstanding Class A voting stock and voting rights of Curaleaf USA. Curaleaf Holdings holds all the issued and outstanding Class B non-voting stock, which represents 99.9% of the economic ownership of Curaleaf USA. The Class B non-voting stock does not provide for voting rights, but are exchangeable in the shares of Class C voting and common stock of Curaleaf USA at any time. As a result, Curaleaf and Curaleaf USA entered into a protection agreement which restricts certain changes in Curaleaf USA's business operations and financial decisions without approval from Curaleaf Holdings. Curaleaf Holdings and the investor of Curaleaf USA also entered into a shareholders agreement with respect to Curaleaf USA to outline their rights and responsibilities regarding Curaleaf USA. Now, I hope that makes a little bit of sense, but if not, here's what's important, and that's the stock chart. Last week, it was trading around $4.33, and I said it's actually looking good as it's moving up, but they always want to pull back, so be sure to lock in profits. Well, it went up to about $4.75, and now it's pulling back and dipping. It is trading around $3.75, so I hope you locked in those profits. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
One of the largest law firms in the cannabis industry is Greenspoon Martyr out of Colorado. Nick Richards is a partner there, and he and Jimmy Young talked today about the National Cannabis Roundtable and their Cannabis Social Responsibility Report that was released this week. That report is called Better Tomorrow Than Today. Cresco Labs, True Leaf, Tilt Holdings, Urban Grow, and Verano were just some of the big names represented.
We had a National Cannabis Roundtable. We do monthly calls. And we had one, I think it was 3 months ago or so. And on that call was Secretary Sebelius of Health and Human Services and James Cole of the famous Cole memo, right?
The Cole memo, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what we heard from them was very encouraging. And I heard some people who were in the know at MJ Biz 2 weeks ago that were pretty positive about it happening quickly as well. Of course, now we have a new person in the House. We have this horrible war overseas and all these other things that are sort of clouding the chances a bit, I think. But yeah, no, what they thought we were going to see, Jimmy, was a rescheduling to 3. And, Secretary Sebelius confirmed that was HHS's recommendation to the DEA, and another sort of Cole memo like document that gives cover for the for the current industry, which of course doesn't become legal if we go to 3.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. It decriminalizes it, though, does it not, if it goes to 3? Or not
I don't
really?
The one thing it does is it eliminates 280E. So I'm going to have to get a new business card, Jimmy.
That says?
280E has been my calling card for like the last 10 years. Jimmy, we're going to lose an old friend, I guess. I don't know that. There's probably people that are yelling at me right now for that, but that itself is huge for the industry, right? That's going to put a lot of companies back into the profit that are really struggling. It's also going to open up some interesting tax questions, Jimmy, like what do we do with those 280E costs that we've been incurring all the years? Now that 280E's gone away, can we get them now? Those are some questions that I think we're going to have to deal with once we go Schedule 3, maybe in a year.
New York is finally back in the cannabis licensing business, and while their mayor wants to take on the added responsibility of shutting down illegal storefronts in his city, there are always interesting developments going on in the Big Apple. Here's Pam Schmiel with her New York report, now sponsored by Union Square Travel Agency.
I'm Pam Schmiel with the New York Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This show is now sponsored by the Union Square Travel Agency, one of the first legal dispensaries to open in New York City. New York has made national headlines for their bold efforts to make social equity entrepreneurs first in line to participate in the cannabis industry. People have cheered their efforts. But their policies and actions have only harmed the ones they are trying to help so far. Farmers are barely surviving because they are sitting on tons of unsold weed because only a handful of dispensaries have opened so far since the state legalized a few years ago. And the Office of Cannabis Management has faced multiple lawsuits because of its mismanagement. And tens of thousands of illegal storefronts have opened and continue to sell their illegal products without any consequences. And the office has also made a public statement that they will look the other way as products from out of state continue to flood the illegal marketplace because they don't want to disrupt the supply chain until they can get their own legal products on shelves. And the other day, the Office of Cannabis Management took another punch at these entrepreneurs who are desperately trying to follow the rules. And they recalled Jenny's gummy brand. Jenny Argy, the founder, is well known in the New York cannabis community and known for her strict manufacturing operations. The product was recalled because of mislabeling. And since the OCM has made this announcement, her product image has been splashed across the local news outlets, tarnishing her good name. The cost of this recall could put the nail in the coffin and put Jenny's Edibles out of business. And the tens of thousands of illegal weed shops will continue to operate, allowing underage children to buy untested products, pay no taxes, and continue to be a health threat to the public. That's this week's New York Cannabis Report. I'm Pam Schmiel for Weed Talk News.
The New York Cannabis Report is sponsored by Union Square Travel Agency, a new travel agency in New York City. That's right. This Union Square Travel Agency specializes in journeys of a different kind. They sell cannabis. Visit them at 13th and Broadway or unionsquaretravelagency.com. For use by adults 21 and older, keep out of reach of children and pets. In case of accidental ingestion or overconsumption, contact the National Poison Control Center and consume responsibly.
In North Carolina, 2 people were arrested for smoking weed in public. Not a big deal since that is an illegal operation and a crime. But unfortunately, there's a twist. You see, these people had just purchased a hemp-derived THCA joint that is legal in that state. The problem is law enforcement does not have a testing tool to measure the THC percentage in the product. The creation of, quote, hot hemp It's causing all sorts of issues in that state and others where these types of products are being sold legally, but unlicensed. These issues are becoming more and more common now that the hemp farmers have figured out a way to grow a product that gets you high and is legal enough, though technically it has more than the 0.03% THC in them. Well, in California this week, there was a major development in employee testing. The State Police Commission has removed all questions about past or current cannabis use in testing for new applicants. Ivana Vassaw has more from the Golden State.
I'm Lavana Vassoff from the Bay Sesh reporting for PCM with this week's California report for Weed Talk News. Do you ever wish cops would just be a little more chill? Now they will in California because there's a new law that says that they will no longer be screening for cannabis to law enforcement. So that's a win for everybody if you ask me. In other news, I went to the Ego Clash. It was amazing. Everybody who was a contestant was a winner because the standards for just qualifying are so high. But here are the first official first through third place winners. There were first through six, but I'm just going to do first through third. And congratulations to all of the contestants. In the rosin category, Yeti Melts took first place with Optimus Lime. Pure and Proper took second place with Kamikaze and Z-Mix. And Jaw Botanist took third with Asian Pear. In the full melt category, Trichrome Tortoise won with Zeboof. Passion for Hash and took second place with CCDLA6 and Starburst OG. And the Real Cannabis Chris took third place with Guapa and Piñata de Piña. In the sun-grown category, Terp Mansion took first place with Lemon Cherry Gelato. Ridgeline Farms took second place with Lance. And Exotic Flavors took third with Hawaiian Snow Cone. For the indoor category, Anu Dye Farms took first place with Eddie's Lemons. Main Trees and Cypher Genetics took second place with Blue Lobster. And Tornado Terps, LA Hash, took third with Skittles. If you don't know why this is related to industry, where industry and culture collide, it's in genetics and breeding. Although all of the competitors aren't from Northern California, the majority, like every other grower in America, are growing Northern California genetics. If you want to check out some of my interviews from the Clash, look for them soon on the Bay Sesh. I'll be giving a big, long video. That's all I got time for today. I'm Lavana Vassoff from the Bay Sesh reporting for PCM with this week's California report for Weed Talk News.
Since Ohio became the 24th and most recent state to adopt legalization, that state has become the focus of talks about the power of ballot questions versus legislative initiatives in state reform. Harry Bernstein is our correspondent from that new state, and most are breathing a sigh of relief that the Senate there has backed off many changes that the voters passed. Here's Harry's report this week.
This is Harry Bernstein with Verde Compliance Partners and the Ohio Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. It's been a busy week in Ohio coming off the passage of adult use legalization. About a month ago, it became effective last week on December 7th. So in Ohio, adults can be adults and possess cannabis and THC. They can also grow up to 6 plants in their home, that's per adult, and up to 12 per home. So those things are currently in effect. Opposition to grown-ups being grown-ups was making a lot of noise that they were going to gut the provisions of the law that was passed. They did not do that. They got a lot of pushback from the 2 million plus voters who want to see reasonably regulated but legalized adult use cannabis products in Ohio. Due to that pushback, there were some hearings held. The hearings seemed to involve some reasonable discussion about changes to the regulation, potentially increasing tax rates a little bit, but flowing some of that money to social equity provisions. The House and Senate both went into recess without putting forth any bill outside of committee. But what we've seen is a lot of good discussion from both sides. I think there's going to be a compromise in the middle. Nobody's going to be happy, but as somebody once told me, if nobody's happy with the end result, then it's a good result. It appeased everybody. And that's what I think we'll see. As I mentioned, the House and Senate are in recess, so we don't think that there's going to be anything done over that time period, but we look forward to a good first quarter where they'll be able to put some regulations in place and get this thing going. And then we'll have a lot more news in Ohio in January. So again, this will be our last report for the year. Everybody enjoy a safe and happy holiday season. This has been Harry Bernstein with Verde Compliance Partners with the Ohio Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News.
So with Ohio as number 24, the big question now is which state will be the 25th? There's already been some positive movement in the state of Pennsylvania, where Claudia Post is right in the middle of the fight for legalization. Here's her Pennsylvania report for this week.
I'm Claudia Post from Scarlet Express, and I'm here in the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, reporting for Weed Talk News. This week, big story here in Pennsylvania. The legislature passed a bill to allow more cultivators and independent dispensaries to grow and sell directly to consumers in the state. This is a tremendous big deal here, and it forebodes recreational legalization. Senate Bill 773, which is now awaiting Governor Shapiro's signature, was passed by the state Senate and then, of course, altered in the House. This bill focuses on allowing all 25 independent medical cannabis growers and dispensary in the state more freedom to conduct direct sales and to produce their own products. It's a big shift, as currently Pennsylvania law limits how many growers can also be retailers to 5. That created somewhat of a concentration in the state market, with most growers having to sell to a few large retailers. And there's lots of complaints about the MSOs in Pennsylvania, obviously. Additionally, there's a reduction in the number of dispensary permits available to growers to 1. Disappointing, but half a loaf is better than none. A pair of bipartisan state senators in Pennsylvania are working to garner support for a legislative proposal that would decriminalize marijuana, downgrading simple possession from a misdemeanor to a civil offense. The bill would remove the possibility of jail time for possession and use of marijuana instead of imposing monetary fines. Each year in Pennsylvania, thousands of people are charged with minor offenses. These charges permanently stain records and hinder an individual's ability to obtain work, housing, and childcare. This legislation would assure that the lives of ordinary Pennsylvanians are not burdened by these charges. I think it's terrific. So that's a wrap from Pennsylvania. I'm Claudia Post from Scarlet Express, and I'll be back after the new year to talk about what's hot and what's not in Pennsylvania. From Weed Talk News, have a fabulous week and a very happy and healthy new year to all.
Here in Massachusetts, the words chaos and crisis continue to follow the Cannabis Control Commission, which continues to come under fire for suspending 2 full-time employees while their executive director has resigned. And their chairwoman, Shannon O'Brien, is fighting with Deborah Goldberg, the state treasurer, about the power of suspension. PCM founder Jimmy Young talked with Talking Joints memo publisher Chris Ferrone about what happened on Thursday's commission meeting.
Okay, Chris, what's the deal? 17 businesses in cannabis in Massachusetts have now failed. Everything we read, chaos, confusion, critical issues going on at the Cannabis Control Commission. That's a lot of C's. What happened at the meeting on Thursday?
All right, well, that's a different story because, listen, I don't have a reputation for exactly being nice to agencies or regulators or bureaucrats. But if we're talking about what actually happened at the meeting in Worcester on Thursday, it was actually kind of a rare one. I was there in person. A lot of advocates were there in person. A couple of really big wins. So first of all, kudos to the Massachusetts Patient Advocacy Alliance, the MPAA, which showed up in person because they didn't know, their telehealth, the ability to get your to have your caregiver consultation by online instead of going in person. That was at risk. It was being that's a COVID measure initially, and it was set to expire on December 31st. And they felt that the commissioners might not take it that seriously, might not take it up, in which case it would have expired. This was the final meeting of the year. They showed up, about 10 of them ultimately, and I don't know if it was just because of that, but Jeremiah McKinnon, who I believe is the president of MPAA, acting chair Eva Calenda Concepcion, read his statement, and it went pretty quickly, other than a bunch of, a lot of the technical stuff, which I'm actually sifting through right now just to make sure I get it right. But basically, so that I think it's technically it's another extension, but they're doing it with the and showing that telehealth is not just a COVID measure; it's something that we should always have, and hopefully that'll extend to other things. As for getting curbside delivery back for adult use, not so much. Not as much of a burden as not having telehealth, of course, for patients. So, but that's a big win, I think, for a lot of people. Huge access issue. So the other big news that you're going to see, because they do a really fantastic job of getting the word out, is delivery operators. Delivery operators who really are trendsetters in a lot of ways. They also happen to also be social equity. It's all social equity applicants to some degree. It's the only state that has an entire category, I believe, that is only exclusively for social equity applicants. In this case, it's for 3 years. And one of the big things hampering delivery drivers, delivery operators, and preventing them from being as profitable as perhaps they could be, is that this rule, Massachusetts, I think, was the only state that had it for all deliveries. You had to have two people, a driver and another person. And I could go on and on. There's still other issues with delivery, but today they got that removed. That's the big coup. That's the big win. And I think kind of like the spike of the football was John Carmichael, who anybody who's followed cannabis in Massachusetts for years and covered it knows, used to be the head of the Walpole Police Department. Now I think he's the head of the Newton Police Department. A known prohibitionist who, of course, they put on the advisory council for the Cannabis Control Commission. He even came through and said they should do this. They should get rid of the 2-driver rule. So I guess you never thought you'd hear it from these lips. Good, well done, John Carmichael. I think he got a letter from all the police chiefs of Massachusetts who, so hey, they were for it. And other issues, I believe that for some reason, delivery operators were restricted to 2 licenses. That's going to be 3. And there's another measure. Check out our coverage. And there's other stuff that delivery drivers still need addressed. But today was a pretty win. You probably won't hear a lot about the good stuff. And I hate to be that guy, but those are things that actually happened today.
And that was all good stuff. I mean, the driver thing has been like an elephant in the room for a couple of years now.
It's been described like that, yeah.
So, and now let's go back real quick. Did they talk about the social clubs, or have they completely tabled that again?
No. I mean, listen, I again, I'm not the one to usually defend regulation, but I will say they are doing their work to the point where I actually walked into a dispensary and saw randomly a dispensary that has a space they'd like to use for social consumption eventually. And 2 of the commissioners who work on that issue were literally happened to be there talking to one of the owners. And I mean, and they're producing reports. They are meeting with people. It's no secret. So, I mean, that's not going to be overnight. I know it's what people want to hear. And, I'm the kind of guy who I don't really believe in any regulation at all. I'll cover it. It's my job. But, so it's not me stopping us from having movie theaters where I can smoke a blunt. That's my dream. Tomorrow I wish, but for now we have the Mendon drive-in, right?
That's fantastic. Chris Ferrone, you do a great job with the Talking Joints memo. Perhaps one of the highlights of this year is adding you in to get some comments from you. I really appreciate the time you take out of your day to share with our audience what the heck is going on in Massachusetts.
If you know anything about the history of cannabis use, you might have heard that the Netherlands and Amsterdam were cannabis friendly with their cafes for decades. Now that country is starting a real legalization pilot with 2 producers who will be providing the product to cafes and Breda and Tilburg. The product that had been available in the various cafes in the Netherlands were grown outside of the country, or were illegally grown. But now if you buy cannabis in the Netherlands at one of the legal cafes, it will have a QR code on it. No QR code, not legal. No QR codes on Canadian cannabis, but that nation continues their own national experiment since 2018. And here's Debbie Facey with our Canadian Cannabis Report.
This is Debbie Facey with We Talk News, your Canadian correspondent, with your last Canadian talk of the year. So our biggest story here in Canada that we have is the advocate Chris Innes. He has been advocating since the beginning of us having to start the whole legalization process here in Canada. But what has happened is that he has been now accused of falsely finding ways to deter from actually claiming taxes. This has actually raised up to an amount of, or risen to an amount of $2.5 million. And that is something that has not only now defined that the illicit market can still operate, but at the same time that money trafficking is still something that we do have to look at. The CRA, which is the Canada Revenue Agency, who takes care of all of our taxes here in Canada, has been trying to attack when it comes to any falsified information and any sort of falsified taxes. But when it comes to this one occasion, they haven't necessarily found exactly how it was done, and they haven't necessarily found who else has potentially done the same thing. So, as 2023 comes to an end, this is going to be our last story, but when 2024 comes, I'm going to be happy to be sharing more Canadian Tokes with all of you. So, happy holidays and have a great one. Peace.
One state that is losing its lobbying leadership for cannabis is South Carolina. After 7 years, NORML, or the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, is shutting down its operation in that state. South Carolina is one of the few states with no medical or adult use laws, and you can still go to jail for possession. The only exception is if you get a doctor to recommend CBD. Of course, you can get that in Epidiolex, which is an anti-seizure medication approved by the federal government. Yet, cannabis still has no medical purpose because it's a Schedule I drug according to the federal law. Well, speaking of laws, Missouri is doing an amazing job with expungement of past cannabis convictions, and Brandon Jones has more on his Missouri Cannabis Report.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. And yes, it's the last show of the year, and I'm coming to you from my living room on my mattress, where I'm using my wonderful Weed Maps balloon as a pillow because I have COVID. I don't know how many people that went to MJ Biz got the MJ Biz bug, but I came back and I even got full out COVID. But I can still read the news and found out, yes, we reach over 100,000 expungements here in the state of Missouri. So we are trying to constantly get done. The biggest thing they're seeing is, a lot of the cases before weren't digitalized. Digitalized? There we go. Speak it outward. But all the crimes weren't written down, digitally. They're just in a piece of paper form. So they're trying to go back and find all the cannabis crimes and go back and expunge as many as they can. It is taking longer than they thought. But hey, 100,000 cases have already been expunged. I know some personally that waited 4 or 5, 6 months, and then they all of a sudden got the email saying, hey, all of your cases have been dropped. You are expunged. And it's a great thing happening in the state of Missouri here right now. So think about other things that getting ready for the new year. Lots of new events are getting ready to happen. New Year's party, actually having a cannabis party here in Kansas City for New Year's. So be ready for all the new things next year. Again, I'm Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report, live from my couch with COVID, still to make sure you got the news. Everybody has to stay educated and medicated. Have a great new year.
Another trend in the cannabis industry is that as soon as adult use cannabis sales open in any state, their medicinal business declines. Case in point, now in New Jersey, where they are lowering the fee to get a medical card with the hope they can offset some of the losses from their first year of legal operations in both fields. Here's Jill Goldsberry with more from the Garden State.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jill here with the New Jersey Report for Weed Talk News, our last show of the year. Can't believe it. It's gone by so fast. But anyway, here's what's happening in New Jersey this week. Since the legalization of recreational cannabis in April 2022, we've seen sales increase every quarter. This last quarter, sales have increased to $176 million plus dollars. So, and with that, medical cannabis patients have faced some of the highest prices and the lowest taxes in the country, increasingly moving those patients to the adult use market. So we're seeing the adult use market increase while the medical use market has decreased. Medical patients are not registering at the rate that they were before. So guess what, guys? The CRC has decided to announce a new program that will help that. They have announced they have made an announcement to significantly reduce the fees for your 2-year medical card from $50 to $10. This is starting actually this month. It started on December 7th. So that is something to definitely look into. If you're a medical patient, this will help you to continue to be a medical patient. And there's also a new digital component to that as well that will allow for more access for patients. And in other news, New Jersey has a new edible product on the market, and I can't wait to tell you about it. Pastry chef and owner of Butter Cake and Campowerment, Mata Figaro, a New Jersey native, has finally released her cannabis product. And what is it? It's a dissolvable strip. Let me show it to you. This is what the packaging looks like. You will be able to find this particularly in stores in different areas of New Jersey. You can find this today in Noir Dispensary in Maplewood, New Jersey. Just go out there and let them know you're interested in it, and you can find it. It comes in ginger peach, and it's about 10 milligrams per strip, and you get 2 in each packet. So check that out. It's a great gift item, and I'm looking forward to trying it myself. So that's all we have for today's news in New Jersey. I'm Jill Goldsberry for We Talk News. Thanks for watching, and happy holidays. Happy New Year. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.
All is quiet on the federal reform front now that the state's 2.0 Act has been filed in the House. And so it looks like the deadline that President Biden put on the DEA to reschedule cannabis from Schedule 1 to 3 has been missed. It's really no surprise. Our elected officials obviously feel they have more important issues to work on. And with 2 wars, though, going on overseas, I think we can give them a pass for missing the year-end deadline. But once again, another delay in Washington, D.C. This just into Pro Cannabis Media News Desk. The country of Japan is easing their strict cannabis laws and getting into the medicinal space. Patient advocacy groups are responsible for the movement in the Japan Parliament that is supposed to take effect next year sometime. Only medicinal products derived from the cannabis plant will be available for designated medical conditions. No such issue in Connecticut. That state continues to have growing pains, though. And here's Angie Seifert with her Connecticut Cannabis Report.
I'm Angie Seifert from Skip Info Advisors with the Connecticut Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Connecticut cannabis retail and medical dispensaries sold $25.6 million in cannabis products in November, up by about $600,000 in sales from the previous month. Adult use sales reached a new high of $15.3 million, an increase from the $14.7 million in October. Medical also increased month over month from about $10.1 million in October to $10.3 million in November. The average price as well of cannabis products increased incrementally, though, in November, with customers spending an average of $38.44 per product for adult use, which is 89 cents more than October. Medical cannabis products also increased, and they increased by 51 cents in November to an average price of $36.99 per product. And remember, medical does not have sales tax involved. So while there has been some criticism that there isn't the best selection in Connecticut and people are driving to bordering states, these sales figures are increasing month over month, and that says quite a bit about the market. To continue the financial good news, cannabis industry financial services firm Safe Harbor Financial says it and its partners have provided a $1.17 million loan to a forthcoming cannabis retailer operating under Higher Collective brand. The Higher Collective store planned for Bridgeport is a social equity joint venture, and the $1.17 million loan to acquire and build the new store is secured by a first lien on the property. Higher Collective currently has 4 adult use retail stores in Connecticut. So if you haven't been made aware, the Connecticut state government also has launched a loan program for qualified cannabis social equity businesses. I'm Angie Seifert from Skip Intro Advisors with the Connecticut Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News.
Another trend in the cannabis industry is that as soon as adult use cannabis sales open in any state, their medicinal business declines. Case in point, now in New Jersey, where they are lowering the fee to get a medical card with the hope they can offset some of the losses from their first year of legal operations in both fields. And finally, tonight, we offer a new movie for you to check out during your holiday break. It's called Nectar Ball, The Story of Cannabis, and it's produced by two California veteran producers, Mark Schultz and Patricia Mooney. You can watch it for free if you go to the link nectarball.com and share your email with them during the 12 days between December 21st and January 1st. They will share the link with you for your enjoyment. And the movie features medical researchers, former professional athletes, and of course, Tommy Chong and Cheech Marin, legendary actors and comedians. Check out the trailer.
What if we're right? What if all of a sudden they discovered that there is medical use for marijuana and that it is good for you and it's better than alcohol and it's better than opioids and it helps your health? What if we're right? What if they find that out?
Specific cannabinoids have medical value. These are facts.
I'm here today in hopes to assist in removing the demonized stigma of cannabis and the perception that cannabis is just about getting high. The true base of this plant has to be known.
I don't think anybody should ever go to jail for cannabis. Get some medicine, and everybody should have access to it.
This is something which, at the very, very least, is the key to alleviating suffering and extending life for millions of human beings. Right? For returning some kind of balance to our society, and quite possibly of restoring our planet's natural balance as well.
That will do it for our final Weed Talk News program of the year. We will be back in the first week of January. For all of us at Pro Cannabis Media and the Weed Talk News team, have a happy holiday season. I'm Elena Pinto, reminding you once again, it is a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. We'll see you next year.
I'm marketing these, and yes, I'm pitching to you.
That's Steve Levine, the inventor and principal behind the One Hit Wonder. And this little efficient device is getting rave reviews.
And there's more uses than just a one-hit wonder.
The One Hit Wonder, you get a 50 milligram hit.
So if you used a one-hitter or dug out before, you know the challenges. Steve's One Hit Wonder is easy to clean, use, and enjoy.
Standard one-hitters do not work. We're afraid to inhale. The One Hit Wonder has a built-in ash catcher. So inhale like it's your last breath. Suck the ash right through.
Get it at onehitwonder.com.